Welcome back to Culture Code English. I am so glad you are here today. Take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders drop, get completely comfortable, and relax. Today, we are going to explore a deeply comforting, surprising, and passionate cultural code of American life. The weekly ritual of Friday night lights, and why tiny American towns completely freeze every single Friday evening. Imagine driving into a small American town on a crisp autumn Friday around 6 o'clock in the evening. You might be in rural Texas, the heartland of Ohio, or the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. The town has a modest population of about 4,000 people. Normally, at this time of day, you would see cars driving down Main Street, families stepping into local diners for dinner, and neighbors walking their dogs along the quiet sidewalks. But as 7 o'clock approaches, something truly strange and magical happens. One by one, the shops on Main Street flip their signs from open to closed. The local hardware store locks its front doors early. The family-owned pizzeria hangs a handwritten note on the window that reads, "Closed to support the Tigers. See you at the game." Within 30 minutes, the entire downtown area becomes completely deserted. The streets are empty. The traffic lights blink quietly over abandoned intersections. To an outsider, it feels as if the entire population has suddenly vanished into thin air. Where did everyone go? If you follow the faint glow on the horizon, just 2 miles down a tree-lined country road, you will find the answer. Rising high above the dark autumn trees are 4 massive steel towers holding brilliant, blinding floodlights. They illuminate a huge, bright green football field like a shining diamond in the dark night sky. Around the field, the parking lot is completely packed with thousands of cars, pickup trucks, and minivans. And in the stadium, on rows of cold aluminum bleachers, sits almost every single person who lives in the town. You see elderly grandparents wrapped in thick woolen blankets, local mechanics sitting next to bank managers, police officers chatting with school teachers, and young children wearing oversized team jerseys. Thousands of voices are shouting together, cheering for a group of 17-year-old high school teenagers running onto the grass. To a newcomer or a tourist, this scene might look like a simple high school sports match. But in American culture, it is infinitely more than a game. It is a modern secular cathedral. It is a weekly tribal gathering, a shared neighborhood tradition, and for many communities, a true cultural religion. In a fast-moving, highly individualistic country, where people often live far away from their extended families, Friday night football is the glue that holds a town together. Today, we are going to unlock the secret history and deep psychology behind Friday Night Lights. We will explore why the United States Congress actually passed a federal law to protect this small-town tradition, how sports build instant community belonging for newcomers, and how you can use this knowledge to feel like a true insider in American society. To understand how this small-town Friday night ritual became so powerful, we have to look back at a fascinating piece of American history. The empty streets and crowded stadiums on Friday nights are not just a coincidence. They were actually created and protected by the highest law of the land. In the 1950s and 60s, a massive technology revolution swept across the United States, the arrival of the home television set. Almost overnight, television changed the way Americans spent their free time. Professional sports leagues, especially the National Football League, began broadcasting games directly into millions of living rooms every single weekend. At first, this new technology seemed wonderful, but local community leaders soon noticed a disturbing trend. On Friday evenings, instead of walking down to the local high school to meet their neighbors, people started staying inside their living rooms, glued to their glowing TV screens. Local high school stadiums began to look empty and quiet. The social glue holding small towns together was beginning to melt away under the influence of big television networks. Then, in 1961, the United States Congress did something truly extraordinary. Lawmakers recognized that local communities were losing their heart and soul. So, Congress passed a landmark federal law known as the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. Hidden inside this legal document was a unique, revolutionary shield. The law explicitly declared that professional football leagues were legally banned from broadcasting any televised games on Friday nights or Saturdays during the high school and college autumn season. Think about how remarkable that was. The federal government stepped in to tell multi-billion-dollar television corporations and professional sports leagues, "You cannot touch Friday night. Friday night does not belong to giant companies. It belongs exclusively to local high schools, local families, and local towns." Consider the story of Arthur. Arthur owned a small hardware store in a quiet Ohio town in 1962. When television first arrived in his neighborhood, Arthur was thrilled. He bought a black-and-white television set and placed it in his living room. On autumn Friday evenings, instead of going to the local high school field to watch the town's teenagers play, Arthur began staying home on his couch, watching professional sports broadcasts from big distant cities. Slowly, Arthur stopped seeing his neighbors on Friday nights. The local high school bleachers became cold and half-empty. Then, in the autumn of 1962, the new federal law took effect. On a chilly October Friday evening, Arthur turned on his television set at 7 o'clock, expecting to watch a professional game. But there was no professional football on any channel. The airwaves were completely quiet. Feeling restless, Arthur stepped out onto his front porch. In the crisp evening air, he heard the distant, echoing sound of a drumbeat from the high school marching band down the road. He looked down the street and saw his neighbors walking together toward the stadium lights. Arthur turned off his television, put on his heavy coat, and joined them. When he reached the field, he sat next to his customers, chatted with the local baker, and cheered for the local teenagers. By blacking out the television screens, the law had re-illuminated the community. Arthur realized that sitting side by side with real people in his own town gave him a deep sense of warmth that no television screen could ever provide. This 1961 law created a sacred legal boundary that has protected small-town America for over 6 decades. It taught Western society a profound lesson. Local human connection is a precious treasure, and sometimes a healthy society must draw a clear line to protect human community from total corporate dominance. Why do Americans need this weekly gathering so desperately? To understand this secret, we must look at a fundamental reality of modern Western society: geographical mobility. In many traditional cultures around the world, families live in the same town, village, or neighborhood for generations. Children grow up surrounded by extended relatives, childhood friends, and lifelong neighbors. In those places, a sense of belonging is inherited naturally through family bloodlines and shared history. But modern America is completely different. It is one of the most mobile societies in human history. The average American moves several times during their adult life, moving across states for university, new career opportunities, or affordable housing. When you move to a new American town where you have no relatives, no childhood friends, and no personal history, daily life can feel surprisingly lonely. You can easily become what we call a long-term tourist, someone who rents an apartment, pays local taxes, and shops at the supermarket, but never truly feels connected to the people around them. You have a physical place to sleep, but you do not have a social tribe. This is why Friday night high school football is so vital to American civic life. It acts as a constructed civic tribe. In the stadium, you do not need an ancient family name or decades of local roots to belong. You do not need to be rich or famous. All you need is a $7 ticket and a willingness to sit next to your neighbors under the bright lights. Consider the story of Alina. Alina was a young accountant who moved from a large, bustling city to a small, quiet town in West Texas for a new corporate job. During her first 3 months, Alina felt deeply isolated. She worked long hours at her desk, drove back to her quiet apartment, and spent her weekends staring at her phone. Her local coworkers were polite, but their conversations stayed on the safe, cold surface. Alina felt like a permanent outsider looking in through a glass window. One chilly Friday evening in October, feeling tired of her empty apartment, Alina decided to try something new. She drove down to the local high school, bought a ticket at the gate, and walked into the packed stadium. The crisp night air smelled of hot popcorn and grilled sausages, and the thunderous sound of the student marching band filled the sky. Alina climbed up the cold aluminum bleachers and sat near an elderly woman named Grace, who was wrapped in a bright red blanket. At first, Alina felt nervous and out of place. But midway through the second quarter, the local high school team completed a brilliant 50-yard pass to score a touchdown. The entire stadium erupted in cheers. Without hesitating, Grace turned to Alina with a huge smile, high-fived her, and shouted, "Did you see that incredible catch?" Alina cheered back, her heart racing with excitement. During halftime, Grace introduced Alina to the local baker sitting in front of them and shared stories about the town's history. For the first time in months, Alina felt the heavy wall of isolation melt away. By the end of the evening, Alina was no longer just an accountant renting an apartment. She was part of the community. She had stepped onto the bleachers as a lonely newcomer, but walked off as a true neighbor. Friday night football had given her an instant bridge directly into the town's heart. Alina's story reveals a profound secret about how to thrive as an immigrant or newcomer in Western society. Most English learners spend years focusing entirely on what we call functional English. They practice how to order coffee at a cafe, how to answer questions in a job interview, or how to buy groceries at the supermarket. Functional English is an essential survival tool. It allows you to pay your bills and navigate daily logistics. But functional English alone will never make a new country feel like home. To cross the bridge from being a long-term tourist to a confident resident, you must make a shift from functional English to emotional English. To understand why this shift is so important, we must look at the deep difference between inherited belonging and constructed belonging. In many traditional, relationship-based cultures, belonging is passive. You belong to a town or village because your parents and grandparents were born there, or because you share the same ancestral roots. Belonging is handed to you like a family treasure. But in modern Western societies, especially in America, belonging is active. It is not something you inherit. It is something you build through your daily choices and actions. In a small American town, nobody asks where your ancestors were born before welcoming you to the local stadium bleachers. Belonging is not a question of bloodline or native accent. It is a question of active participation. When you sit on those cold aluminum bleachers, cheer for the local high school team, or volunteer at a neighborhood event, you are making a powerful psychological transformation. You stop acting like a temporary guest who is quietly waiting for permission to belong. Instead, you become a mental owner of your life. You realize that you do not need a flawless American accent, a perfect understanding of complex slang, or decades of local family history to claim your place in the community. In Western civic culture, respect is earned when you show that you genuinely care about the local neighborhood where you live today. By stepping into shared community spaces, you demonstrate that you are an active neighbor who is invested in the local soil. This mindset shift frees you from the constant anxiety of trying to fit in. You do not have to erase your original culture or forget your native heritage to belong in a new country. Western civic society operates like a salad bowl, where different ingredients keep their unique flavors while coming together to create a rich, shared dish. You can keep your rich cultural identity, your native language, and your personal history while fully enjoying the local rituals of your new town. Participating in traditions like Friday Night Lights allows you to build a warm, emotional bridge to your community while remaining completely true to who you are. How can you use this knowledge to navigate your daily life with true confidence? The secret is remarkably simple. Stop waiting for an official invitation to belong. Whenever you see a local community event, whether it is a Friday night high school sports match, a neighborhood weekend market, or a seasonal town festival, do not hesitate or hold yourself back. Walk right in, buy a ticket, or simply stand with the crowd. You do not need to overthink your grammar, and you do not need to apologize for your accent. In Western civic society, your quiet presence and your genuine smile are the only credentials you will ever need to be welcomed as a neighbor. Look at how far you have already come in today's lesson. You have just listened to a deep, complex, and meaningful narrative about American history, federal law, and social psychology completely in English. You did not need to stare at stressful grammar charts or memorize lists of dry vocabulary. Your ears naturally followed the rhythm, the intonation, and the emotional flow of the language. You should feel genuinely proud of your progress today. Be patient with your language journey. Building deep English fluency is not a high-stress sprint. It is like planting a seed and watching a quiet garden grow day by day. Every story you explore, every cultural code you decode, and every peaceful minute you spend here listening is quietly retraining your brain to think directly in English without translating in your head. Consistency is your superpower. You do not need to study until your mind feels completely exhausted. Just 15 to 20 minutes of active, quiet, and relaxing listening every single day will create extraordinary transformation over time. If you enjoyed discovering the secret history behind Friday Night Lights today, and if you are ready to claim your true sense of confidence and belonging in your language journey, make a simple, beautiful promise to yourself right now. Leave a clear mark of your growth in the comments below. Type, "I belong here" in the comments right now. By writing these 3 powerful words, you are sending a clear signal to your mind. You are declaring that you are no longer a passive guest or an outsider in your life, but an active, confident owner of your language and your future. Thank you so much for spending this peaceful, meaningful time learning with me today on Culture Code English. Keep listening, keep practicing with patience, and never lose your natural curiosity. I look forward to exploring another beautiful cultural code with you very soon. Have a wonderful, relaxing evening, and keep listening every single day.